Hi guys, welcome to Mimo's tutorials. I hope I find you well. We are moving on to the next topic, which is health and diseases. There are certain things that we are required to know. We need to know the causes of certain diseases. We have communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases. When I'm saying communicable, we're talking of infectious diseases and the non-infectious diseases, and we need to know under infectious diseases, we must know about cholera, malaria, tuberculosis, typhoid, and bilharzia as well. And then on the non-communicable diseases, we must look at the deficiency diseases that are mostly caused by lack of certain nutrient in your body system. And we also have genetic diseases where you find maybe the whole family is suffering from the same disease. Those are genetic diseases, which means that they are passed from one generation to the next generation, from the parents to their offspring. And then we have cancer as well, so we need to look at these, and we'll focus mainly on what causes them, how best can we treat them, and also what are the preventive methods. Prevention is better than cure. Okay, so we are also going to have okay, now we need to define some important words here. Firstly, it's health. You need to know what health is, what a disease is, what a sign is, and what a symptom is. Especially signs and symptoms, you should be able to differentiate the two. So, starting with health, this is defined as a state of physical and mental well being, right? So, now I'm moving on to a disease. A disease is any physical or mental disorder that interferes with the normal functioning of the body and has a characteristic set of signs and symptoms. So anything that interferes with your health, in other terms, anything that interferes with your mental well-being or your function, your body functions, we call it a disease. Okay, and in most cases, it is accompanied by signs and symptoms. So when we're talking of signs and symptoms, we're saying a sign is any indication that can be measured. That's something that we can see, which is a proof of you being sick. For example, you can have rash, you can have an increase in temperature, you can have you can lose weight. So these are the signs. So signs we can see and be able to measure them. But then when we look at a symptom, this is just an indication of a disease, and it can only be felt, meaning to say we can only get to know about it from the person who's suffering from that disease. The person will have to tell us, for example, headache. We cannot see that someone is suffering from a headache, but then they can tell us, okay, or they're having their joints are painful, or they are feeling nausea, or they are feeling dizzy. So these are the signs, these are the symptoms. Okay, so symptoms is something that we get to be told by the person who is suffering. And then now we're moving to the groups of diseases. We say there are two main groups that we're going to look at. We've got infectious, the other one we can say communicable diseases. These are diseases that can be passed on from one person to the other easily. Okay, and we have non-infectious diseases or non-communicable diseases. These diseases cannot be passed from one person to the other. Okay, so now having a closer look at the infectious diseases, like I said, they can be moved from one person to the other very quickly, and most of these they are caused by pathogens. Okay, we call them pathogenic diseases because they are caused by pathogens. And a simple definition of pathogens, we simply say these are disease-causing agents, right? So disease-causing agents, they are pathogens, and examples of these pathogens, they include viruses, bacteria, protozoa, fungi. All these guys, they cause diseases, okay? So how do they do that? Mostly through vectors. So a vector is just a carrier of the disease. It's an animal or any object that can carry the disease. It can carry the pathogen with it, and then it can drop it elsewhere and cause a disease on that particular person or that particular animal. Okay, so a vector is an organism that transmits pathogens from one organism to the other. So we've got two types of vectors. We've got mechanical vectors and biological vectors. So a mechanical vector, this one, it carries pathogen on its body surface. For example, a housefly. You know, a housefly is the one that carries pathogen for cholera. So you are familiar with that one. The pathogen will be on its body surface. Okay, but then a biological vector, it carries the pathogen inside its body. And a very good of that vector is the Anopheles mosquito, because it carries plasmodium inside its body, and then it can pass it on from one human being to the other through feeding, right? And then now we have got another way that these infectious diseases can be moved from one person to the other through inhalation of infected air droplets. You can inhale air that is infected, and a very good example of a disease that you can get through inhaling dirty air or infected air is tuberculosis, right? And also taking contaminated food and water. If you eat food that has been contaminated and drink dirty water as well, chances are high that you can also get these infectious diseases, especially cholera and typhoid. Also, when you have contact with infected water, for example, bilharzia, if you swim water that has been infected, you can suffer from bilharzia. Also, when you have contact with infected organisms, things like ringworms, you can also end up being infected. Okay, excuse me. We also have sexual intercourse. Some diseases, they can be some infectious diseases can be passed on from one person to the other through sexual intercourse. We have covered these ones when we were looking at reproduction, when we looked at the diseases that are associated with our genital organs. We talked of the STIs. I'm sure these ones you are much familiar with them. And then now, excuse my voice. So we are required to know, as I was saying, we are required to know the causative agents, the exact pathogen that causes the disease. We must know the signs and symptoms. We must know the methods of transmission. We must know the treatment the treatment and methods of control for each and every disease. Okay, so we are going to start off with bilharzia. So with this bilharzia, we need to know the causative agent. I really wish I knew how to pronounce the causative agent of bilharzia. It's really long, and I don't know how to pronounce this one. But guys, just look at that word and find ways of pronouncing it. I'm afraid I will break my tongue. But then I'm sure bilharzia is a common disease. You guys know it. You urinate. When you're done urinating at the end, you see drops of blood. So signs and symptoms of this bilharzia: you can suffer from anemia, tiredness. We can see blood in urine and in feces as well. Okay. I I don't know how to pronounce this. Scritro. I cannot pronounce this. So now we said you can see blood in your feces, blood in your urine, because this um, causative agent, this pathogen damages your bladder, right? It damages your bladder vessels and also the gut vessels. That's why at the end of the day, your poop will be having blood and your urine be having blood as well. So methods of transmission, uh, it's only when someone is exposed to contaminated water. Okay, you go and swim in the contaminated water, or you get to drink contaminated water, you are exposing yourself to bilharzia. Okay, and then how can we treat bilharzia and how can we control it? Firstly, it's sanitary disposal of urine and feces. You make sure that we have good sanitation, best sanitation, so that when you go to the bathroom or even when you urinate, you are not risking whatever you have done to into the water sources, into the water bodies, where it is going to infect the whole river or the whole dam. Okay, so good sanitation, proper toilets will help, and also boiling of water before using it. Okay, sorry about that. So we said for treatment of bilharzia, you just make sure you drink good and clean water all the time. You can boil the water if you don't have any access to clean tap water, right? What about AIDS? So AIDS goes hand in hand with the sexually transmitted diseases, right? Its common method of transmission is through unprotected sexual intercourse. You need to know what AIDS stands for, which is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. And what causes AIDS? It's a virus called immunodeficiency, human immunodeficiency virus, which is HIV, right? So, what are the signs and symptoms of HIV and AIDS? We have got loss of weight, rash on your skin, we see cancer. There are a lot of diseases associated with HIV and AIDS, because remember, it attacks your immune system. Your immune system gets weaker, and opportunistic diseases will affect you. Almost all any disease that you can think of, a person with HIV and AIDS will have it. Now, methods of transmission: we have sexual intercourse, unprotected sexual intercourse with an infected partner, sharing of sharp objects with an infected partner, especially when people are taking drugs. We have got mother to child, when the mother is pregnant, through the placenta, or during giving birth, or during breastfeeding. An infected mother can actually pass the virus to the baby. But then, how can we treat AIDS? How can we manage it? You must just avoid having multiple sexual partners. One faithful partner is perfect. Avoid sharing sharp objects with people. Avoid pregnant mothers to take medication to prevent their children from getting HIV, and also to follow the guidelines from their medical practitioners, whether they should breastfeed or not, if they are breastfeeding, and what are the rules and regulations, so that they don't pass the HIV to their children. And also, abstinence is the key. When you abstain, chances of you getting HIV, they are minimum, because you are not sexually active, right? Then we have got malaria. I'm sure you guys are much aware of this one. It's the most common one. It's also caused by a pathogen. In this pathogen, we call it Plasmodium. Plasmodium is under a group of protozoa. Okay. So the signs and symptoms of malaria: we have got headache, there's fever, anemia, pain in muscles and joints, there's shivering and sweating as well. But then the way it is, okay, it keeps jumping. It wants us to focus on the next portion, but we're not yet done with this one. So I was speaking of malaria. It's caused by a plasmodium, right? Now we looked at the signs and symptoms. Now we're looking at the methods of transmission, where we said it is transported by a vector, which is an Anopheles mosquito. It's a female Anopheles mosquito. Remember, female mosquitoes are the ones that feed on human blood, right? So they are the ones that actually carries the plasmodium. The plasmodium can stay in the stomach of the Anopheles mosquito, and also in its saliva. So when it injects you, when it bites you, so that it can suck the blood easily, it first injects its saliva to prevent coagulation. Remember, your blood can clot. So to prevent your blood from clotting, it has to inject its saliva into your system. Then it can suck your blood nicely. So now, because of the once it does that, once it puts its saliva in your system, if it is carrying plasmodium, you'll be left with plasmodium in your body and you suffer from malaria. But if it doesn't carry any plasmodium, then you'll be okay. So that's how mosquitoes, they transfer this malaria from one person to the other, this plasmodium from one person to the other. So to treat this one, you can use the anti-malarial drugs. You can also find ways of killing or destroying the mosquitoes, especially to prevent their reproduction, and also you must prevent being bitten by a mosquito. Our next one is cholera. The causative agent of cholera, we call it cholera vibrio or vibrio cholera. So this is a bacteria that causes cholera, and the signs and symptoms of cholera, they include vomiting and diarrhea, and the person will suffer from dehydration. Okay, so now how can we treat this? And okay, what's the mode of transmission? It's transmitted mostly by drinking or eating food that has been infected. Eating infected food make you suffer from cholera. Once you eat your fruits or your foods are not cooked well and it's infected, chances are high that you are going to get cholera. So the best way to prevent cholera, we must have a good sanitary disposal where we throw away our trash. Has to be a good place, and where we go for relieving ourselves has to be a good place, so that if anyone is infected, the infection won't affect the whole community or the whole family. As for drinking water, we must make sure that we drink clean and safe water. We mustn't drink any dirty water. And the best way for water is to boil it if you don't have any access to tap water. Also cook food well so that you destroy any germs that will be there. And when it comes to also cook food well, wash your fruits, all those simple things, they prevent us from suffering from these different types of diseases. Okay, those were examples of communicable diseases. We're going to have a look at them in more detail on our next sessions. So this is just a small background of these two different types of diseases, like two different ways that people can get sick. It's either infectious or non-infectious. So now on transmissible diseases, these ones, they cannot be passed from one person to the other. These ones, they can either be genetic, they can be due to deficiency diseases, or the degenerative diseases, or environmental diseases, things like that. So starting with deficiency diseases, we'll look at them mostly again when we're looking at nutrition. We have kwashiorkor, we have scurvy, we have rickets, and night blindness, all through these are deficiency diseases. Scurvy, you're lacking vitamins, that will be vitamin C, and then for rickets, someone is lacking vitamin D, vitamin A for night blindness, and then kwashiorkor, there you'll be lacking proteins. We are going to have a look at it in more detail when we'll be looking at nutrition. We have got genetic diseases. These are passed through genes from one parent to the other, right? For example, we've got sickle cell anemia, we have hemophilia, and Down syndrome. So these diseases are actually passed from one person to the other. So sickle cell anemia, I'm sure you can see the picture of red blood cells there. When you're having sickle cell anemia, your red blood cells, they change in shape and they look like a sickle like that. Instead of them being spherical and having large surface area, they will change and become in that form, which means that your oxygen transmission will be reduced and very poor. And then hemophilia, this is an issue of bleeding. You'll be bleeding. You easily bleed. You'll be bleeding. That's a disease, and it's very genetical. We have got Down syndrome and albinism. I'm sure you can see an albino there. And Down syndrome, I'm sure you guys are much familiar with Down syndrome. Like your body functions, your coordination is not normal. It's not like any other everyone else. Okay. And we've got degenerative diseases. These ones are characterized by a gradual decline in the functions of an organ as a result of aging. Okay, my picture is not so clear, but I was saying that we've got degenerative diseases. These are characterized by a gradual decline in the function of an organ. It can be as a result of aging or someone is too stressed. So examples of these diseases are like we have arthritis and even coronary heart diseases. So when you stress too much, you are straining your body. At the end of the day, it can end up having some of the functions will be declining in other special organs like the heart, and you can even develop arthritis. We also have what we call environmental diseases. These diseases they result from the presence of pollutants in the environment. Let's say you're staying at a mine. We know mines, a lot of chemicals are used and a lot of emissions are there, a lot of smoke and stuff. So you end up inhaling all those pollutants, and at the end of the day you'll get sick. You'll have bronchitis, you have emphysema, lung cancer. All these are resulting from the presence of tar in the air or any other pollutants in the air that can affect your respiratory system or any other part on any other part of your body. We've got mental disorders. Mental disorders, these are disorders of the mind. They can be either caused by chemicals or by physical factors. For example, we've got schizophrenia, which is a mental disorder. Mental disorder, that's when we say someone okay. So when we're talking of mental disorders, that's when we see someone is insane, uyahlanya or arikupenga. Those are mental disorders, right? So now we also have what we call self-inflicted and social diseases. Self-inflicted, it's like these are diseases that we bring on ourselves. For example, smoking. Smoking comes with a lot of diseases. Lung cancer, it brings emphysema. We have liver cirrhosis. It comes with drinking alcohol, drug addiction. So there are a lot of diseases that comes with our social activities, with what we do as human beings. Okay guys, for today we'll leave it here. On our next lesson I'll be continuing with the communicable diseases. We'll be looking at them in a detail. We'll be looking at them in much more detail, explaining them. Okay.